Welcome back to the Hives of Necromunda, loyal servants of the Emperor. We're continuing our look at the various gangs of Necromunda, and today we're taking a bit of a detour, covering one of the newest factions to enter into the Hive. And it's one I've gotten probably the most requests for as of late, and that is the Palanite Enforcers. Really quickly, if this is your first Necromunda lore video, first of all, welcome. Check out the playlist in the description below. You'll see a lot more videos like this. And if you do like it, please go ahead and share it. It would mean the absolute world to me as I kind of dive into these other games and try to get folks interested in checking out the channel. Now, as with most of these gangs, there isn't a ton of art, but I'll get whatever I can together and we'll dig on in. So from a high level looking down, what are the Palanite Enforcers? Right? I'm going to alternate. I'm just going to call them Enforcers from now on because it's kind of a mouthful. These are the military arm of Lord Helmwar, the planetary governor of Necromunda. All the factions we've covered so far in this series have been, the common rabble. Gangs built upon mutual interest and greed and savagery. They all are allowed to have these power bases and status of being the big houses of the Hive because they provide basic services for the greater whole. They kind of together form a complex ecosystem of power struggles. But the Enforcers here represent the will of Helmwar himself, not the common man and woman fighting for scraps, so they kind of are off to the side. They are a representation of imperial might, right? The will of Helmwar made manifest. But understand that having a faction based on law and order doesn't mean that they are good, right? Good in the traditional sense, at least not on Necromunda. Because sadly, there's a whole lot of similarities between them and the gangs that they claim to corral. First up is purely practical, right? They draw recruits from the same pool. These are not like genetically cloned people or super soldiers. Them and the gangs are fighting over the most capable fighters and minds in the Hive. The brightest and strongest citizens of the Hive are scooped away at a young age and inducted into the Enforcer program. This is like a harrowing experience, even by the standards of gang introductions, right? Applicants are stripped of their name, put through immense physical and mental stress and training. The basic idea here is to take a hiver, right? Anyone who lives in the Hive, let's say they're pretty smart, they're pretty strong. You break them down into nothing, and then let the system, like the government system, rebuild them into a better form. Mentally strong, uncompromising, highly trained, and well armed. And I emphasize that last part because it's extremely important. As far as the common power bases are concerned, right, all the big gang houses and stuff like that, the Enforcers are one of the best armed that there is. Van Zar has access to all kinds of crazy weapons, but that doesn't mean that every ganger has them every day, right? They still have to requisition access to all of these crazy weapons if they want to bring them. They're pretty rare, because they're highly valuable. And other gangs have to barter at the market or plead to their house lords to get bigger and better weapons, proving that they can handle them and what they'll do with them, all this kinds of stuff. Well, the Enforcers can easily just put in a requisition for a weapon and boom, they have it. Always having access to the right tool for the right job. That's sniper rifles, missile launchers, shotguns, and more. And this is likely a good time to bring up their temperament, right? Because it's not police as we know them. You'll often see them called the cops, in forums or Facebook groups like that. And that's true to an extent. It really, really is. But in terms of how we understand how police act, they're very different. This is far more militaristic and have a lot more freedom to dispense capital punishment than anything in our world. There are so few of them, right? Meaning there's just the terms of, the amount of people enforcing the law versus the people that they're trying to enforce that law upon. Those statistics are not great. The number of men and women trying to keep, Helmwar's grip on the Hives under control are outnumbered hundreds of thousands to one. So to exert the control and authority they do exactly what the common gangs do, which is a show of force. You have to make yourself seem bigger than you actually are, so people are scared of you. Their weapons are intended to create fear. You have concussion weapons, grenades of all flavors, heavy armor. They're faceless, they're nameless. If they think there's an ounce of sedition in a Hab zone, they will just as happily wipe it out as they will cull it. Every man, woman, and child can be killed. They are judge, jury, and executioner for authorities that they serve. They are merciless and they are efficient. And on that note of efficiency, this leads them to an incredibly rigid military structure, which, including the fine arsenal, is pretty much what makes them most different from other gangs. They operate in these colossal, they call them precinct fortresses, and there can be hundreds of these throughout a hive, and this acts as their main base, ready to dispense law and order in a moment's whim. Now, when an inductee is fully trained and they graduate the enforcer program, they are assigned to a precinct far away from the place that they were taken. They don't want anyone to recognize them. This is supposed to be a completely foreign place, and you have a new identity, everything like that. You're given the best of weapons and told that everyone outside of the precinct walls is a potential enemy, a heretic, and it's up to you to keep things under control. When you put all that together, you get a very grim prospect, right? You have a faceless, nameless soldier that's been robbed of their identity, built only to serve the state. They are ruthless in their judgments and merciless in their actions, armed with top-of-the-line weapons and a penchant for big displays of violence. Because they're so few in number, they need to be perceived as a bigger force than they actually are. The idea of the enforcers here is that they need to be terrifying for them to be effective. Now, that's not to say that they're just marauding around and killing people and causing trouble. They very much respect the balance of power between all the houses, but they are the iron fist of imperial power that everyday Necromundan citizens see, reminding them that insurrection and dissent will never be tolerated. That ideas like liberation and religious freedom are a virus in these populations, and the enforcers are the cure to that virus. They are what's called in if the houses can't manage to keep things under control, because they are, like I said, the fist of authority. Now, backing up from that, why are these guys cool? Right, first of all, super dope models. I mean, just absolutely incredible looking. They look great. For only having like a page and a half of lore, these guys are super awesome. And I get strong, Judge Dredd vibes from them, and I love it. I'm sure that's exactly what they were based upon. The further you go back into our real world of what Necromunda evolved from as a game, you can definitely see it started very much as Judge Dreddy and then kind of became its own thing over time, which I appreciate. I like the focus on identity. If you haven't followed this channel, or you don't follow my Age of Sigmar stuff, it's a common theme that I think is really important and that Games Workshop handles frequently and really well, is this idea of identity. What does it mean to have yours taken away? What does it mean to be given a new one? How do those two realities, conflict with one another and cause internal struggles that are really meaningful and well written? Well, at this point, you have something that I don't think we really have something quite like it in AOS, but it's the idea of what does it mean when the state, this government, this faceless government, crafts a person, right? And it's an extremely interesting concept. What is a state-sponsored human? They invest a lot of resources to make that happen. There's a lot of training, mental, physical, and obviously just the equipment and the different, precincts they move you to. There's a lot of investment happening to make these people as almost as inhuman as possible for no other purpose than serving the state. And as much as they, are in opposition to the other gangs, in a lot of ways they have to act like them just to make things survive. And I almost wonder if that was the idea, right? Here is another gang, but this one's by Helmwar himself. And they are somehow not in charge, but above morally and power base wise than all the houses, because they can kind of circumvent all of them. I wonder almost if this was an intentional thing of okay, we're gonna let these houses have power, but we're gonna make one of our own to make sure that we are never usurped, we're never found unnecessary. No, we're gonna have our own type of gang, but we're gonna call it, law enforcement to make it seem respectable. And that's our quote unquote cover, kind of like how Escher has pharmaceuticals and that kind of stuff. This is our cover, and this is how we're gonna rule. I think that would be an interesting concept if there was a state-sponsored gang, so to speak. They have access to incredible weapons, and honestly, if you're looking at their sprue, they have some of the coolest weapons in the entire game. But they are very limited in number, and this actually plays out super well on the tabletop as well, where, I was playing a game against my buddy, and he had, I think, 5 Palanite Enforcers with various weapons, but nothing super crazy, and I had almost double that in Escher girls coming at him, and, it was a close game, but holy smokes, he had very few guys. And I think the way that played out on the tabletop is a testament to, how interesting the lore is, that they truly are, just a couple versus millions and billions, and all these people who are trying to, all this law and misrule stuff. Lastly, I like their fact that they're based upon quick and efficient justice, but not goodness. You know what I mean? They're not to protect and serve like police officers in the U.S. have written on the side of their cars. They're like to enforce and maintain, or something like that. This is the militarized police state taken to an absolute extreme, and it makes them fit very interestingly into the kind of the ecosystem of the Hive. And realistically, that's what I think I find most interesting about Necromunda, right? I'm doing all these lore videos for the various factions because they all have these cool, very descriptive backgrounds, and they're all very different, and how they claim power is very different. But I think the most interesting to me is when you zoom back and you see how they all interact with each other. Stories where they're conflicting and they're trying to usurp one another. It makes this ecosystem of all these different gargantuan organizations hyper interesting, and how these guys fit into that is super cool. So friends, that's just my thoughts. Go ahead and let me know in the comments down below if you agree, disagree. What is your favorite, unit or equipment option from this army that you've had the most fun with, and tell me a story about it. So go ahead and let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and I look forward to seeing you in my next lore video. Thank you so much, and happy wargaming. Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed that video. It was made possible by the folks over here to the left. These are my top supporters over here on YouTube and on Patreon that keep this channel going. If you'd like to learn more about how to become a supporter and get some cool things in the process, like exclusive pictures and interactions with me, and get your questions answered here on the channel, go ahead and click any of the links down below or the join button on the community page over on YouTube. Regardless of your choice, I wanted to thank you so much for joining me with this video, and I look forward to seeing you in my next one. Happy wargaming.